Hola, bienvenidos a Vox Terra. I want to welcome you back to Vox Terra, and today we're going to talk about universal basic income from an environmental standpoint. Why I really support universal basic income from an environmental standpoint. Now, this came from a listener request, a listener who has or a viewer request who has a show called Mongoose 80, which I would describe as kind of a commentary and travel channel. So for me, the start of everything is looking at our economy and how, in my opinion, it's destroying our environment. What's happening here is pumping our environment full of greenhouse gases and carcinogens. So if you stop and think about that, it is basically employing us, or most of us, to either directly poison our planet and ourselves in the process, or the way we go about earning our income, which might be something that is essential, important, and life-giving, has an aspect of it that is also pumping our earth full of greenhouse gases and carcinogens, and endocrine disruptors, and neurotoxins, and so on and so forth. See, the problem is everybody's wedded to this system. They're all married to their jobs, so to speak. So a lot of people like to focus on the fat cats, so-called fat cats, who are the ones who are really profiting, the heads of the oil and gas industry, the heads of the petrochemical industry, the very wealthy. But it's not just them. It's not just them manipulating this whole system, manipulating the media so we all buy into it. Yes, that's happening. There are lots of money going into PR, so we all just take this system for granted. But it's also just regular folks like you and I who are dependent on our source of income, who want to believe in what we're doing. I'll give you an example. I was talking with a roofer once, young man, and he was honest enough to say, look, he doesn't like metal roofs because they last forever. He was simply, in his own way, articulating for what's called designed obsolescence, articulating for a disposable throwaway economy to protect his livelihood. So that's why for decades now, going back to my childhood, I believe, I've supported some type of safety net as a way to ease people away from this destructive economy. So why UBI in particular? Well, a UBI, Universal Basic Income in particular, because first of all, if everyone's getting that guaranteed check each month, you're taking a lot of pressure off their back. They can now pause and reevaluate this rat race. And it really is a rat race. Think about it, right? There's a deadly disease flying around, COVID-19, and yet the majority of the human race, or at least major portions of it, did not want to pause consumer capitalism to stop the spread of that disease. Consumer capitalism in some ways fostered the disease by the superheating of our planet, the deforestation, the factory farming, the overuse of antibiotics. I know that's other diseases, but you get the picture. So now if that weight is off of people's back and they know things are going to work out regardless, it gives them a little breathing room to reassess. What are they doing? What's the impact of what they're doing? And it makes them less inclined to want to stand up for whatever they are doing, even though it might be harmful. I like universal more than means tested. Means tested meaning you got to go to the government and prove how poor you are to get something, because universal gets universal buy-in. We all pay in, we all get out. For example, por ejemplo, Social Security. Social Security is a widely defended program. When you start to needs test things, you create divisions between the have-a-littles and the have-somethings, and people get resentful. I'm sorry, sir, but you're making $10 too much and you're not going to get that help now. Your kids can just starve. You get what I'm saying? Needs-tested programs, often defended from a liberal or left viewpoint, people might say things like, well, why should we pay for these rich people to get free college? Well, because if we don't all support something, the resentment happens. So universal gives more buy-in. Another reason is I agree with some of the, for lack of a better word, conservative analysis that some of the safety net programs can become social engineering. And I also agree with Andrew Yang's analysis that, some of these programs aren't really valuing people who maybe just want to stay home, be homemakers, or that type of thing. So, for instance, affordable childcare. Really well supported. But let's look at the other side of it. Now, I support it, but let's look at the other side of it. Okay, what you're doing now is you're subsidizing a daycare industry when some people might rather keep that subsidy and stay home with their kids. And from an environmental standpoint, considering we're racing around really not doing much of anything, in my opinion, other than pumping our earth full of greenhouse gases and carcinogens, it might be better off they do stay home with their kids or stay home tending the garden or that type of thing than they are out engaging in the rat race. There's a bias towards everyone going out and participating in this economy, when maybe to a degree we do need to be scaling back the economy, shrinking the economy, and then greening it. So while I like the simplicity of universal basic income, I like the buy-in of it, I like the fact that it's less invasive in people's lives than other solutions, it's less engineering the direction you want things to go in, I still support a Green New Deal. Let me tell you why. Because no matter what we do, this system is completely subsidized. As I pointed out in my video on natural gas, polluters don't have to pay for the cost of that pollution in the product. Therefore, the market subsidizes low polluting or high polluting industries. So for instance, that gallon of gas, if you had to pay for all the, carcinogens it's emitting, the particulate matter it's emitting, and the greenhouse gases, how costly would that gallon really be? Well, the public isn't going to stand for super costly gasoline. The only way out of this is to subsidize and change what we're subsidizing. Additionally, those industries get other kinds of subsidies, tax incentives, grants, all kinds of things that are barely talked about. So a Green New Deal, in my opinion, is really just transferring the subsidy. But in our consumerist capitalist economy, which we have, and I'm advocating moving away from, it's going to require a lot of entrepreneurism to get us towards that greener state. So therefore, I again think a universal basic income is the best way for people to chart their own life forward. So for instance, let's say the Green New Deal offers incentive to be an organic farmer. Well, that universal basic income gives you some certainty that while you set up your herd of goats, you're not going to go broke and starve. Well, how should we pay for it? How should we pay for it? Well, the type of tax I've always preferred is a progressive graduated income tax, meaning the higher your income, after you hit a certain threshold, the monies after that threshold is taxed at a higher rate. That way you're still leaving in the incentive that we're all habituated, we've all been trained to be motivated by. You're not taking away that incentive. You're just getting less as you get higher, but there's no, you make over a certain amount, now you're going to make less, it's going to be taxed. Now you're still going to make more, but it's taxed at a higher rate as it gets up. Now Andrew Yang talked about a value-added tax, which I believe is basically a tax on consumption. Now my younger self might have opposed that, viewing it as regressive, but my older self has seen how cheap gasoline, everybody started driving giant gas guzzlers. There's just too much consumption. So I hope you found my arguments that a universal basic income is an excellent foundation to transitioning towards a greener, less polluting, less toxic economy. That you've subscribed, you've commented, you've liked, you've clicked that notification bell, and until next time, peace be with you.